Good morning to everyone and a warm welcome to all of our attendees who have joined us this morning. Our topic this morning is unlocking business opportunities in the UAE. A few house rules. I have disabled the Q&A function. That is because some of our panel speakers need to jump off after this presentation, but you're most welcome to use our chat bar and place your comments in there, and we will try to answer as many questions as you can after this webinar. Just get things started, I want to introduce my esteemed panel of speakers. Joining us this morning, we have Ambassador Saad Kachalia from the South African Embassy in Abu Dhabi. Welcome, Ambassador. We welcome Mr. Umar Khan, the Director of International Offices, Dubai Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We welcome Ms. Rihanna Boulay, Investment Promotions Manager for Real Estate Infrastructure and Special Projects at Wesgro. And a welcome to Dr. Ashraf Mahate, who is the Chief Economist for Trade and Export Market Development at Dubai Exports. Introducing myself, my name is Thiru Naidu, and I am the Senior Trade Manager for Export Promotion Middle East at Wesgro. To kickstart this morning, I'm going to do a quick overview of Wesgro and Western Cape exports into the UAE. So if you'll bear with me, I just want to share my presentation. Okay, so some of you on the call may know Wesgro, some of you may not. So this is just a quick overview. Wesgro, we are the official tourism, trade and investment promotion agency for Cape Town and the Western Cape. We are partly funded by our Western Cape, usually funded by the Western Cape government, partly funded by the City of Cape Town, and partly funded by our agricultural, forestry and fisheries industries. Our agency is made up of various strategic business units. We have our tourism unit. They are mandated to market our destination as the #1 destination in Africa for leisure tourism. Our conventions unit, they market our destination as a #1 destination in Africa for business tourism. So they bring in those big conventions and conferences. Our air access unit, they're very much involved in international route development, bringing in new routes in and out of our region. Our film division, they market our destination to international film producers and assist with access to film locations in our region. Then we have our investment division. They assist companies and organizations looking to establish their business in the Western Cape and hopefully headquarter their business in the Western Cape. And thereafter, of course, our unit, which is a trade promotions unit, our core functions is to promote and facilitate the exports of goods and services from qualified companies in the Western Cape, and to facilitate and support operations and expansion of qualified Western Cape companies into the rest of Africa through outward foreign direct investment. So the Western Cape is known as an agricultural powerhouse. We're the 5th largest African exporter on the African continent. We export almost 47 billion rands worth of exports. We exported that in 2019. Of that, we exported 65% of South Africa's share of beverages. We exported over 48% of South Africa's share of agriculture, 73% of South Africa's share of fishing products, and almost 35% of food, beverage, and tobacco. So looking at our Middle East export markets, the UAE is our largest trading partner in the Arab world, followed by Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iraq, Israel, Turkey, Qatar, Bahrain, and then Lebanon. Looking at our top 10 exports to the UAE, our export basket is made up largely of fresh fruit and agri-processed products to the UAE. #1 export product to the UAE is citrus fruit, followed by wines of fresh grapes, apricots, cherries, and peaches, grapes, other fresh fruit. We also export coin, diamonds, revolution, and production counters, undenominated ethyl alcohol, dates, figs, pineapples, and avos. Looking at our top 10 imports, I'm not going to elaborate on this. My colleague Rihanna, who will come on later, she will talk more about top 10 imports to the UAE. Looking into South Africa's trade with the UAE, you will see that South Africa has not always enjoyed a positive trade balance with the UAE. However, in recent years, from 2015 to 2018, we have seen a positive trade balance. And interesting enough, in 2020, which was the year of COVID, again, we experienced a positive trade balance. Of course, the idea moving forward is to try to maintain this positive trade balance. And that is why this engagement this morning is so important, to have these webinars and to engage with our counterparts in the UAE. Okay, so that's it from me. I'm going to stop share. And it gives me great pleasure now to introduce my first guest speaker, who is Ambassador Saad Kachalia from the South African Embassy in Abu Dhabi. Ambassador is going to chat to us about bilateral trade agreements and trade relations between the UAE and South Africa. Over to you, Ambassador. You can unmute yourself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tiru, and very good afternoon, and to Dr. Mahathir and Mr. Khan and my colleagues from the consulate in Dubai and my colleagues here in Abu Dhabi from the mission. And obviously a good morning to all of you in South Africa. I see that you have put a large group of people together on this web. I don't think I've ever spoken to such a large group of people in my life before, but thank you very much. I know we have limited time, but you know, I've just come out of a meeting with the foreign ministry here in the UAE, here in Abu Dhabi. And one of the things we chatted about was to see and to explore ways in which we take our relationship with the UAE to even greater heights. And we identified trade and commerce as a pivotal area where this can be done. Now, you know, the United Arab Emirates remains a strategic trading hub for South Africa in the Gulf, and in particular in the what we call the Khalij, the GCC area. Now, as you have correctly, correctly pointed out, Tiru, is that the statistics show that the volume of trade between the UAE and South Africa amounted to nearly 46 billion South African rand in 2020. Now, this trade between our two countries proves that as a country, as a nation, we have been very resilient, particularly during the time of COVID, with all the lockdowns and also travel restrictions. What was important and critical was that the travel between the UAE and the Gulf and South Africa, particularly the Cape, did not affect the cargo and the freights. So business carried on, exports and imports continued. So the export values and the increase is mainly due to the increases in food. And remember that the UAE, the issue of food security is critical. Our strategic relationship, one of the areas is in food security, and it's the way we need to build. So the export of vegetables, machinery, and other what I would call unclassified goods, prepared foodstuffs, live animals now form part of the top 10 South African exports that come into particularly into the UAE. Now, the Western Cape's key sectors are agro-processing, aviation, business services, education and training, financial services, real estate. I think those of you on this panel who are on this web who are familiar with real estate or involved in real estate know the interest that is shown in real estate by people from the Gulf, ICT, manufacturing, particularly light and oil and gas, even timber, and of course, tourism and clean energy. And we see as a mission that the export basket, particularly from the Cape, is growing. And we see the F&B sector growing in leaps and bounds. And this is fresh fruits and vegetables. And we know the Western Cape is the world's 5th largest exporter of citrus fruits. And it is responsible for our nation's, 62% of the nation's volume. Now, the UAE is also an important hub for exports and re-exports of meat, beef, mutton, goat, poultry, including rabbit. And what I want to bring to the attention of the people in the Western Cape is we have 13 abattoirs approved by the UAE in South Africa. And this sector now needs the support of Wesgro, because we have no, I don't know, on my records, we have no registered abattoir from the Western Cape. One of the requirements here in this part of the world is that it must adhere to halal standards. And where Western Cape has got, I think, the largest population of Muslims who adhere to halal standards. And we don't have one abattoir that has, or meets the requirements of the Western Cape in as far as halal products are concerned. Now, the halal market, as I say, is an area which needs to be developed and can, grow our exports. Now, we had the inaugural Africa Halal Week, I think it was in 2018, and it had over 25 international guests and over 700 delegates. Now, in the halal area, surprisingly, there is, halal cosmetics and there are grape juices that are exported as halal wines. Now, there is a potential for cosmetics, particularly with the halal angle to it. That means it doesn't contain any, halal alcohol products or non-halal fat ingredients. So there's a potential for that. And I think the South African market needs to gear itself for this particular area. And I think it's also correct to say now, I've just been reading, that there is an area for kosher foods to come into the UAE now. And I think South Africa, and we all go to Woolworths, those of you who are familiar with it, my colleagues from the, you will find there are halal sections and kosher sections. So I think those of us in South Africa who are involved and who do the stamps and who mark the goods as halal and kosher need to be engaged to involve themselves in the market in the Gulf, particularly in the UAE, which has taken the initiative on issues of kosher foods. So I think work with the MJC, work with SANA, and get issues certified, call in the people from the UAE. And I think people like Mr. Khan and Dr. Mahathir know full well. I mean, they're better placed than me to speak about these matters to the people who are on this web. The role of, and I've said this before last week, that the role of politics and government must be limited in as far as trade is concerned. We mustn't interfere too much, but we must make sure that we enable. I see on your panelists you have certain people I know, and talking about halal, I know Ms. Neertlang, who's there from Paarden Kloof. They into up and coming, doing good wines at Paarden Kloof, and I think it's an area which they can engage or be allowed to ask on issues of grape juice. Clearly, we've been going through difficult times with lockdown, and particularly alcohol. Gives an opportunity for our people. God forbid, I think COVID won't come back, hopefully, but when we have restrictions to people who rely entirely on manufacturing or industries like this, it's nice to give them an opportunity to branch out. But clearly, there's a room for the for halal and kosher in South Africa, and I think we need to get our people to look at exports in that field. In the same way, organic products have shown growth potential, and I think I talked about Neertlang. I think they also do ecology stuff. So basically looking at organic stuff, but we need to assist, I think, as government and as Wesgro, and I think you play a critical part. You're very familiar with this part of the world, but you need to help our exporters with issues of certification and exhibitions. Dr. Mahathir was saying he's busy with Gulf Food. Now, Gulf Food is an exhibition which is going on now, COVID, no COVID, it's happening. And it's people like Dr. and Mr. Khan who make sure and who look at these exhibitions as areas where they can interact with everybody. Everybody beats a path to these exhibitions. We sit in Abu Dhabi, there's a huge defense exhibition going on. There's people from all over the world here. And I must assure colleagues and participants and fellow South Africans that the UAE and its adherence to COVID regulations, things like which we need to adhere to are strictly enforced here. So exhibitions go on, people come, and it's not only access. I said in the beginning that it's an export and a re-export market. So people from all over the world come here. So when you come to the UAE and you come to Abu Dhabi or you come to Dubai to exhibitions, it's not only the economy, or you're not only interacting with people from here, you're interacting with people from all over the world who come here. It's like, those of us who come from Johannesburg, it's like a big Rand Easter show. Yeah. Those of you who still have that memory, I'm old now, I talk about Rand Easter show. But, so it's like that. So, and we know, the South Africa and the Western Cape in particular, we also known for dairy products. Like we go quite exotic sometimes. Our specialty in cheeses. It's, we know cheese. You can't talk, I can say this and I say it proudly and even arrogantly if you want to believe that. You cannot compete with South Africans, the small scale producers, on issues like organic oils, organic cheese. We also live far away from olives and olive trees, but we've got the ability to provide good olive oils, and we have olive products in South Africa, and many other oils that we produce in South Africa. So that market it's something which Wesgro needs to look at and to encourage the small scale producer to. I've seen at Gulf Food, and I think Doc will tell you, and so will Mr. Khan. You see South Africans who come there, and I sometimes wonder, why haven't I heard of them? But these are small scale people who on their own initiative have found their way here and are doing and are trying their level best to break into the market.
Yes, Ambassador, 100%.
Now there's another thing, and I'm going to say this, and I don't want to offend anybody. There is also a huge expat population, and if you go to the stores here in Spinney's or Waitrose, you will find a special section which they mark non-Muslim section. Now, in that section are all products, pork products, and it's aimed at the expat population. And South Africa, I mean, we know, and I think all of us know that and I'm saying this because there's a market for it. I don't see, I go around, I go into Spinney's, I walk into that section, but I don't see anything from South Africa. And we are known to be masters at sausages for braais and the cured products that come from this particular animal and meat. So I think it's an area where we can encourage and see how to break into this market as well. I was told by some of my colleagues sorry to
interject, Ambassador, but due to time.
My time.
Yes, I know Mr. Khan has
Yeah,
engagement, so we're so limited on time.
yeah.
But
Yeah,
we've taken all
look,
your
I think
learnings. And
there's a hell of a lot. Maybe I can share some of my points with you. Yeah, I think this kind of thing has been with me for all my life. I even failed exams because I didn't have time, but it's okay. We'll have another web at
we'll
some
definitely
point.
take
Thank you
this.
very much. I will
Thank
stop
you,
there, but
Excellency.
just to end by saying, please remember that the mission, the consulate in Dubai is very active. They are engaged in issues of tourism, which I haven't even touched, issues of tourism and trade, and they sit right at the door of Expo. So please engage with the consulate in Dubai. They've got able people. Mr. Minele is there, the CG himself, there's Mr. Maranjan. The whole mission is geared towards assisting South Africans. And here in Abu Dhabi, we do what is necessary. We are also very conservative, but there is a market. So please be in touch with us, be in touch with the mission, be in touch with the consul office, and I assure you that we'll give you whatever kind of support you need. Thank you very much, and I will now keep quiet.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you, Your Excellency. For our attendees, just so you know, Wesgro is engaging with SANA. We are engaging with the Halal Trade Center in the UAE, and so look forward to those webinars and educationals around halal certification. Okay, so I'd like to bring on my next panelist, Mr. Umar Khan, who is the Director of International Offices at the Dubai Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Mr. Khan will be speaking to us about the UAE and Dubai business climate, overview of Dubai Chamber, UAE and Africa trade, and UAE South African trade. Welcome, Mr. Khan.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Thank you. I also share the same challenge as well, because I think me and you live in the moment and we are very impassioned about what we see and about the opportunities. So I do also see the opportunity. I always see what could be, and I share your enthusiasm. If I could just share my screen here, if you don't mind.
I'm going to do that for you, Mr. Khan.
Sure, I have it ready. Oh.
You have it?
Yeah, I do have it. Just one moment. If you can...
Okay, yeah, it's on now.
Okay.
Is it okay? Sorry.
No worries. Can you go to full screen?
Yes. There we go.
All right. And first and foremost, I would like to say also, I share His Excellency's enthusiasm for South Africa. I've recently, a few years back, spent 2 New Years there. I've been to Naisda, I've been to George, been to Franschhoek, Stellenbosch, and of course, Cape Town and areas and around there. And so and I've been visiting the continent of Africa, many different countries through the international offices. And I have to say, South Africa is definitely a very globally unique intersection of many different cultures. And I think it has a very strong role to play in the evolution of the African continent. But switching back to the presentation, if we go to the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about the UAE, about Dubai, and what's been happening recently. Of course, the UAE is first in the Arab world for ease of doing business. It's globally #1 in e-infrastructure, #9 in competitiveness, and we're quite resilient in terms of the general competitiveness, but also with regards, we've been ranked 3rd in terms of an economy for post-COVID recovery. So again, the UAE and specifically Dubai, we're very small. We can be very agile, where other larger economies could take some time to adjust their course. We could do a U-turn and give you whiplash. And that's not also to sort of be smug about it, but these smaller economies can be facilitators for the bigger economies as they make their adjustments. So again, every economy complements the other. And of course, in terms of global ease of doing business, we're ranked #16. Dubai itself is the #1 in the Arab world in terms of human development. It's first in the Middle East and North Africa, and 5th globally for best city for expats to live and work in. And of course, in 2020, it was one of the leading travel destinations in the world for international passengers. And of course, we're 6th in terms of medical tourism as well. If you could go to the next slide. Of course, in terms of the COVID challenge, and I hope everybody's staying safe and taking all the precautions and keeping their loved ones safe as well. The UAE was in a new territory. This was not 2008, and that was unprecedented. But this was, we have been more globalized, more open, logistically, many things are just in time. So we were looking and waiting and seeing what's happening in the world, as we saw the impact as well with our international offices come in from China and go through the Middle East and through Africa, Asia, and then of course to the Latin American and North American countries. And as things were happening, the government and the private sector were very heavily engaging in dialogue about the effects, the impact, the immediate effects, the long term, the short term, and we're coming up with smart solutions, whether it was for the immediate sanitization of the city, testing, and this was new territory. As I said, we had never gone through anything like this, but we were very lucky and blessed that the UAE has a very swift dialogue mechanism between the government and the private sector. So you would see many different solutions rolled out. And because we were really good in logistics already and cold storage, food security and things like that, this really helped us actually propel UAE in terms of managing COVID, dealing with the impact of it, as well as what I call health logistics capabilities. And I think this has become a very important sector where you can, especially for vaccination, for testing, where other places in the world are having a lot of challenges in the supply chain. Dubai and the UAE as well have done exceedingly well globally. If we can go to the next slide. And of course, new initiatives to help stimulate the economy more recently. Again, these are also very beneficial for the existing businesses, but even more for new entrants. So this is something for our South African businesses to think about. There's the launch of the retirement visa, the 10-year golden visa, the passport and citizenship program, as well looking at entrepreneurs, visas for high performing students, professionals, artists as well. There's 100% foreign ownership allowed now in much wider part of the economy. And of course, there's so many different virtual programs for schools, for businesses, for exhibitions. And of course, there's so many other actions taken in. So as I said, we have that quick mechanism where we can move quite fast. And this is not something to just attract you. This is something to actually convince you when you are here and you are part of the economy, you will see this, this serving you as well. Can we go to the next slide? In terms, of course, of the new opportunities, we are very much invested with regards to the emerging markets. We're looking at ASEAN, different parts of Asia, Southeast Asia, especially Africa, East and South are some of the strongest, and they take the strongest part of our trade, 40+ billion relationship. Latin America as well is something, and Dubai Chamber just for Africa in the past 10 years has invested $27 million into that relationship and diversifying further away from the GCC. This will always be our breadwinner, but we have been growing this, and now our trade with Africa is 11% of our trading relationship globally. So this is something also to think about when you think about your South African products, as His Excellency mentioned, whether it's the meats, it's the beverages, it's whatever you wanted, even the biltong. And I've seen the ostrich biltong that is halal compliant. I've tried it, it's excellent. So there's so many opportunities to not just bring your products here to Dubai. We export and re-export 80% of what we bring in. So, and this goes as far as Latin America and Japan and China and so on and so forth. Recently also, we have opened relationship with Israel. We've signed the Abraham Accords in August. And now we've just announced that we've traded already. We started from zero. We've traded over 1 billion dirhams worth of trade. And this is a great opportunity as well, because Israel saw us as their warehouse for logistics. They have very limited real estate. And they said, well, from Europe and USA are their number 1 and 2 trading partners, but they are so small, it takes forever to get products to them, while it could take less than 24 hours to get it from Dubai. So again, this is a very interesting relationship, and this is something that South African partners can be a part of, because also Israel has a lot of technologies, a lot of capabilities also in specialized agro in desert areas. So that also is something that's very interesting as well. And of course, we're looking at new industries such as space, food security, and of course, health logistics, as well as e-commerce. Health, e-commerce, and food, those have really taken off. Those have actually gotten stronger over the past year. Next slide, please. And of course, just to give you a quick idea about our trade portfolio, of course, you can see our top trading partners here. And last year, we've reached $150 billion overall by the first half. And maybe Dr. Ashraf can share more of the updated figures. And of course, this is 30% of our contribution, and 70% of our GDP comes in here in Dubai from a service sector. So even when we're talking about food supply, there's so many gaps in any supply chain, in sort of the cold storage, food wastage, certification, you name it. There are many different services that we can cooperate and play parts of with regards to facilitating trade as well. And of course, recently, the Minister of Economy announced that the actual trade with Africa, the first 9 months of 2020 actually grew. It was 37 billion in 2019. It was over 40, it was almost 41 billion in 2020. So again, it shows the resilience of Africa, and people have their eyes on it. And of course, we look at South Africa as one of the engines in the cylinders, one of the main engines in the cylinders of the African continent. Next slide, please. One more, please. And of course, Dubai Chamber started in 1965 with 450 members. We now enjoy a membership base of 261,000 members. In 2020, we gained 16,000 new members. If you go to the next slide, it'll show that we have facilitated about 50 billion trade for our members. In 2019, of course, it's 61 billion. And we can go to the next slide. And of course, Dubai Chamber has a full economic research arm. We also work with the Economists for Research and other partners, but our own research arm really publishes a powerhouse of information, market trackers, economic bulletins, whether it's on the local market dynamics or the price indices that are happening. This will give you great opportunity to assess the feasibility of coming to the market, or also bilateral relationships with other economies. So do visit our website at dubaichamber.com. Next slide, please. Of course, the key pillars going forward are international expansion, looking towards the Expo, and of course, we are looking at hosting the World Chamber Congress in 2021. If you could go to the next slide, please. Part of the international expansion since 2012 is actually to expand our availability around the world. We have a lot of engagement. Dubai is a magnet for business and pleasure. And so there's a lot of connectivity. But what happens between one visit and the other, or one big physical event and the other, is a good question. There is a loss of momentum from both sides. So this is where we decided we need to situate a few offices in key strategic emerging markets. We've done this since 2012. Our target is to have 20 small offices around the world to represent us, to gain market insight and intelligence on what's really happening, not what's on the news, what's actually happening, in opportunities, in getting to know the right people and the right partners, and also to understand what's happening in legislation, change in business regulations, and other opportunities before it becomes news. So we have an offices now, truly, we have a network from around the world. So in the East, we have 2 offices in China, one in Shanghai, and further east near Hong Kong, we have one in Shenzhen. Of course, Shanghai is the commercial capital. Shenzhen is the technological capital, the Silicon Valley of China, if you will. Further towards India, we have an office in Mumbai. Then in Eurasia, we have an office in Azerbaijan, covering the Caucasus, the Russian Federation, as well as Belarus and Moldova. And Africa, we have the largest number of offices at the moment. We have 2 in the East, covering Eastern Africa and Kenya. And of course, Ethiopia covers itself with 100 million. And of course, in the South, we have Maputo, Mozambique, that covers the SADC region. In the West, we have our office in Ghana that covers Western Africa. Further to the East is Latin America. We have an office in Argentina, we have an office in Brazil, and for Central America, we have an office in Panama City. Soon, we're going to open an office in Mexico City. Vietnam, Russian Federation, and many more are going to come. But this is part of what we will be doing once we engage with you and you engage with us, or actually set up here. This is the capability, the horsepower Dubai can add to your business in terms of visibility and promotion. And of course, the 16.7 million tours that we enjoyed in 2019, they're all going to be in the hotels, be in the restaurants, be in the exhibitions, looking at your products, consuming your products, and then thinking of actually attracting your products to their region as well. Next slide, please. Of course, you can skip to the slide, but we've in 2020 we had a tough year. We had to completely reimagine our map, but we were very lucky. Actually, it was an amazing blessing where we could actually run virtual events. We were able to reach almost 4,000 people across 30 events, virtual events and exhibitions. And we realized that with partners like Wesgro and other partners and other chambers and like Dubai Exports and FDI Dubai, we could actually accelerate trade as long as we actually facilitate the introduction of trusted businesses to trusted businesses. The rest, such as connection, logistics, and transport will take care of itself, as well as finance. So again, this is something to think about. And if we go to the next slide, our goal here is to share a little bit about Expo. Of course, we decided to partner with Expo and become the official business integration partner. And of course, Expo is going to welcome 190 plus countries. It's happening, of course, in October this year. And Dubai Chamber, as the key business integration partner, we're going to be conducting the 6th Africa Global Business Forum that's happening on October 12th and 13th. And in addition to that, of course, we're going to have the ASEAN Global Forum in December and the Latin America Global Business Forum. So it's going to be a very busy time for us. If you can go to the next slide as well, we'll be supporting the Expo with the global, we'll have the Global Islamic Economy Summit, the World Chamber Congress, and as well, you can see all the different themed activities, thematic weeks that will be happening where we are a partner there in engaging the community, the event, and helping them with that. So again, this is what we'll be doing. And what's important, like as Ambassador said, I always say, tell us what we don't know. There are a lot of surprising facts that many people have not known about certain economies in certain countries. From my travels, this is the most important thing for me. There are many great products, but if people don't know about them, they won't reach out to you. Unlike phones update themselves every day. Human brains choose to close their brains off. So this is something to really consider about, and for your businesses to tell us about even the bespoke products, because Dubai is a great platform for many bespoke food and agribusiness products, culinary experiences. So keep this in mind. But important thing is people need to know about them, like beluga caviar, like French champagne from the region of Champagne, or Kobe beef. I'm sure South Africa has a lot to offer from that side. So I agree with the ambassador. Next slide, please. Of course, there are many different benefits to being part of Expo. There'll be tender opportunities, so be involved. There'll be business matching events. There, as I said, there's a lot of connectivity there for the world, and it's based on 3 different themes as well. So sustainability, opportunity, and there's mobility, and so it's going to be what we want to do. We don't want a regular exhibition. We really want countries to interact. We really want to have a success story for the world, and the world has never needed optimism and hope more than now. So we look forward as well again to South Africa really putting their mark on the map there when they are in Expo, and that includes the businesses. That's very important. The government, as His Excellency said, can't do everything and should not do everything, but they should facilitate, and they've done a great job. So again, the businesses have to engage, and we look forward to supporting that. If you can go to the next slide. One more, please. Of course, the UAE trade with Africa, as you can see, in 2019, it was 45.2, sorry, Dubai's trade with Africa. And you can see the breakdown between how much we import in terms of value, export, and re-export. A big part of this is, of course, sometimes it's gold and diamonds and so on and so forth. So again, with the Africa Free Continental Trade Agreement, we look forward to actually pushing our businesses to invest directly in Africa, to help Africa gain more of that dollar instead of going for unwrought metals and items and resources and food commodities, to actually go up the supply chain, because we believe they can do that. And South Africa is a great example of doing this. If you can go to the next slide. And of course, if you look at South Africa, it's ranked in the top 10 in terms of our trading partners. And of course, there's many different reasons and certain areas where we focus on, but South Africa, definitely, we tell people with the Free Continental Trade Agreement, more and more, you're going to see more South Africas in the region, and intra-Africa trade is going to really take off. And that's where it's a challenge for the outside trader. And we encourage people to invest and not trade from afar. for the very long, for the medium to long term. So that's one thing we're really pushing for. So again, this is an opportunity to attract many people to South Africa for co-investment and partnership to grow, because we don't have the 1.4 billion population in the GCC. We have high GDP per capita, but also it's sometimes an unpredictable sort of area. And things go up and down. And now in the risk profile of Africa, Africa's risk profile is actually balancing out quite well, and it's quite stable if you choose the right countries and the right partners. So this is a great opportunity. If we shift to the next slide, please. There we go. If you look here in terms of our trade with Southern Africa, in terms of the value and the number of certificates of origin, you see South Africa is quite strong. Of course, then there's Botswana and Zimbabwe. And again, it is South and East Africa are the strongest ones. So there's a lot of room to grow. I think we're only scratching the surface. If you can go to the next slide, please. And of course, you could see the food trading during the COVID period as well. In terms of total exports and total imports, they are going up. Next slide, please. And if you look at Dubai's major partners for F&B, you could see South Africa as well has a sizable share, but of course, there are other countries that it has to compete with, but we think that there's a very specific high quality capabilities in South Africa, the business capabilities, the logistics capabilities, the transparency in regulations, and this is a very, very strong influence as well. And if you could look at New Zealand, a small country like that, so far away, it actually has 13% of that share. So this is something that I think we could definitely grow with Southern Africa and South Africa in particular. Next slide, please. And of course, you can see some, I won't delve into this because we're running out of time, of course. You can see the tonnage of the different products in the food and beverage area that we engage with. And there's always room for growth, and we can provide research regarding this. Next slide. Actually, I think 2 slides, please. So South African UAE trade, as you can see, has been quite productive. What you see that's different usually, there's an export of mineral fuels, manufactured goods, machinery, and transport as well. And it's sort of similar from both sides, from the UAE and Dubai. So it's a more mature market. So it's different usually from the usual profile of trade between an African country and Dubai and the UAE. Next slide, please. And of course, if you look at the Dubai exports to South Africa in terms of the volumes and values as well, you can see everything from some glassware, beverages, mineral fuels, plastic items, ceramic products, you name it, because also South Africa cannot just also be a consumer of products, but they also can be a value adder and can be a re-export hub as well from many different ports that it has. Next slide. And of course, in terms of more about Dubai exports to South Africa, you could see products regarding footwear, milling industry, articles of stone, plaster, cement, building materials, and so much more. We go to the next slide. And of course, our last slide is, of course, we're looking at the synergies as well. Tourism is an amazing opportunity for both sides, but I think from my visits to South Africa and the opposite climates that we have, whether it's for agriculture or actual tourism, I think there's an amazing opportunity in marketing South Africa, the logistics, the automotive industry as well. We connected with Ford when we were there, healthcare, education. I know our office in Mozambique, they always speak about how amazing the healthcare in South Africa is. And they access it often. So this is also another opportunity. And of course, in terms of products, there's, of course, as mentioned, beef, fresh, chilled, and even dried biltong, wood, cosmetics, sugar, confectionery, glassware. So we can provide a lot of information regarding this. So I won't delve too much into this, but I hope this gives you a snapshot into what can be possible as we go towards Expo, what Dubai can facilitate, whether you are trading with us here, trading through us, or actually is trading here in Dubai to the rest of the world. And I think definitely there's a lot to be said for South African know-how, quality, and the products and expertise. So I think this is a really great opportunity to take advantage of as we go towards Expo. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Khan. Thank you for those great insights and learnings. And I totally agree. There's so much opportunity for us to grow our trade across so many more sectors than just fresh produce. It gives me great pleasure now to introduce my next speaker, Ms. Rihanna Boulay, who's our Investment Promotions Manager and Real Estate for Real Estate Infrastructure and Special Projects at Wesgro. Rihanna is going to chat to us about investment promotion services at Wesgro. Welcome, Rihanna. I'm going to share.
Thank you, Tero. Good afternoon, Your Excellency, fellow panelists and attendees. It gives us great pleasure to explain to you or give you detail on what the services of the investment promotion team is. And also a great thank you to Mr. Khan for a very detailed explanation on our opportunities with Dubai, or sorry, with the UAE. Next slide, Tero. So as previously explained by Tiro, Wesgro is funded by the City of Cape Town and the Western Cape government, and we offer free and confidential facilitation service to companies and organizations looking to establish and grow in a first-class African business destination. Our team of portfolio managers have more than 40 years of experience in supporting businesses, and our key sectors are as follows: agribusiness, hotel and real estate, tech industry, manufacturing, oil and gas, business services, and the green economy. It is to be noted that in the last 5 years, that we've attracted in excess of 4 billion rands of worth of investment in the real estate sector within from the UAE. Next slide, please, Tiro. So what is the services that the investment promotion team offers? We basically focused on foreign direct investment and domestic direct investment into the province. And so in as much as a foreigner has access to the services, companies who are looking to expand and looking for investors in into their particular businesses are able to access the services as well. So how can we help you? We assist you with guidance regarding access to governmental incentives and grants, site location, which is a key thing that I focus on within the agency, access and facilitation to finance, professional referral services. So we give you access to professionals in regard to the different sectors or businesses that you're engaging in. Policy advocacy, leveraging strategic support for the investors, a one-stop shop. Strategic matchmaking, so we will find partners or relevant partners to, with regards to your particular business. Sector-specific research via the Wesgro Research Unit, and intergovernmental linkages. For more than 30 years, we've built trusted relationships with key stakeholders in the public and private sector across the Western Cape, South Africa, and the rest of the world. And these are just some of the companies that we've assisted and that we work with on a daily basis. Next slide, please, Tiro. Our success stories in the last 5 years, the team has secured more than 11 billion in foreign and domestic fixed direct investment into the Western Cape and Cape Town. These investments will support the creation of more than 6,000 new and direct jobs. We've worked with businesses ranging from multinationals, SMEs, in easing the path to establish and grow in the Western Cape economy and beyond. We look forward to engagements with all of you on this, and we will now hand over to the next panelist to explain what the opportunities are within the UAE. Thank you, Tiro.
Thank you, Rihanna. Okay, so it's a great pleasure that I introduce my final speaker, Dr. Ashraf Mahathir. Thank you for your patience. Dr. Ashraf Mahathir is Chief Economist for Trade and Export Market Development at Dubai Exports, and he'll be chatting to us about exploring MENA and the UAE market through Dubai. Over to you, Dr. Ashraf.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. Your Excellency, Ambassador Omar Khan, and the team at Wesgro, it's certainly a pleasure to be here today. The approach I want to take for my presentation is actually to help or give you some insights as to how I believe that companies in South Africa can actually enter and become successful in the UAE and the MENA market. But I'd like to make 2 points. The first point is His Excellency the Ambassador said something amazing. In fact, he said a number of very good things, but 2 of them in particular is that you have to meet. There's nothing like actually coming to a country, visiting and sensing for yourself. And exhibitions are taking place. As I said, I've been in Gulf Food all week. It's certainly taking place. You can go on your own, but I would strongly advise you to be part of a country pavilion. Because when you're part of a country pavilion, you get a lot more exposure and people come to country pavilions. And of course, your consulate and the embassy in the UAE is doing an amazing job. There should certainly be good points of contact. But also, if you're looking to come into the UAE, I would strongly recommend that you make contact with the Dubai Chamber offices in Africa and also in Mobutu. The Dubai Chamber offices do an amazing job. They really have a very good understanding of what is happening on the ground. So as I said, my approach in my presentation today is more about how you can actually become successful in the UAE market. I'm cognizant of time, so I will mention a number of things, but again, the team at Wesgro have our contact details. If you need any further information, I'm quite happy to provide this. Can we go past 2 slides? Okay, so the first one is we have seen, and the next slide, please. We have seen that COVID has really changed the way we do business, right? When we have seen something, we cannot unsee it. The way of doing business now is very, very different. So the first thing is to re-examine your product and to see, is it relevant for the post-COVID environment, right? Today, I went to Gulf Food, and I will repeat that quite often. We printed our tickets at home. It's all touchless, all contactless, right? There's sanitization, there's special protocols. So you have to look at your product and see how is it relevant in the post-COVID environment. And again, 3 things which are very important: how to make your product faster, better, and more cost-effective than your competitors. Also, it's very important to review your target market. Are your target market the same as before? The example I use is Hilton Stay Care. Before COVID, Hilton did not even create this particular brand. Now they've created a brand called Hilton Stay Care. It's all about how you have sanitization protocols, how you create safe environments. So they looked at their target market and they looked at how to make their products more relevant. And again, how do you create partnerships? You don't have to do everything yourself. Creating effective partnerships is a very, very important point. And this is again where my colleagues in Dubai Chamber can play a very important role, because they can actually connect you to partnerships and collaborators here who can help you enter the regional markets. Also, you have to look at how to reassess your distribution channel. I'll talk more about that later, and produce a post-COVID export strategy that's relevant and flexible to change as things change. Can I have the next slide, please? Now, there are certain rules about the UAE GCC market. One of the important things is that there's no such thing as an average consumer. 88% of the UAE population is expatriate from 130 different countries, right? So any style or taste, if marketed, can be successful. So a lot of what you do is how you market your product. So the 4 Ps are still relevant: price, product, promotion, and the 4th one, place, where you market your product and how you do it. The second is, what is the average wage? We have people from $400 a month to over $100,000 a month. Unfortunately, I'm not in the latter category. I wish I was, but you have a very diverse range, okay? So really, again, it's all about knowing where to target. Now, the bulk of the income segment is between $2,000 to $6,000. So you have to look at how to market your product. We had some products that we were helping a company with, and we positioned them as a niche product at a high value add, okay? The second one is, who are the influences for purchasing? Research has shown that 65% of purchases are influenced by women. So who are you targeting your products at, right? The payment is one part, but who is the influencer? And the third one, or the 4th rule, is that when you enter the UAE or the Dubai market, you're not just entering for the local market. With tourists from 190 countries, with an expo taking place, you're actually using this as a launch pad for a much wider market entry strategy. So again, you have to have a roadmap. What is your aim in the UAE? What is your aim? How to get your products from the UAE into the wider market? What strategy will you use? What promotional strategy will you use? And what channels you will use? May I have the next slide, please? Now, moving on, there are certain things which are very important. Consumers are brand conscious, right? But it doesn't mean that you cannot have non-branded products, right? Buying is very social. I mean, people ask, what do you do in the summer here when the temperature is 48, 49 degrees? We go shopping, right? We go to shopping malls. So shopping, even though I'm not discounting the idea of e-commerce is very important and certainly been increasing, but so buying is a very social activity. So again, the emphasis has to be on how you recommend your products, how your products are promoted, right? Social media is a very, very effective tool. Even the smallest of companies can use social media effectively to reach a wide pool of potential buyers, right? So again, and here, Instagram, you have to know which social media tool or platform is important. Instagram is important, right? And again, but these things change, right? I mean, TikTok is gaining a lot of prominence. So these social media channels change. So you have to know what does your target market use and how can you promote your products in your target market in a very cost-effective manner. May I have the next slide, please? Status symbols are very important, right? But again, to particular market segments. One of the interesting things is that, and again, when I look at particular segments, I find that practicality is sometimes thrown out. They might have one big branded item, right? Whereas in other countries, you might buy more practical and buy a range of things. The next point is that people like to touch and see before they buy. This is becoming less relevant as people become more used to doing e-commerce, but it's still good to have a touch and feel aspect. Can I have the next slide, please? Fashion is very important. So again, it's how you use your social media, how you use online channels to create content. One of the interesting things I find about the Middle East is that people eat what pleases them, but they wear what pleases other people, right? So again, there's a lot of show. And again, this I think is part of the Instagram culture that we now find ourselves in. So a lot of it's to do with show. Again, it goes with food. It also goes with clothes, also goes with other aspects. Perhaps less so for the B2B segment. This is more relevant for the B2C segment. In terms of language, next slide, please. In terms of language, it's always good to have your content in Arabic, including your social media content. And the most important thing to remember, the most important market segment are aged about 30, right? This is not a normal bell curve population. You have to understand a lot of people here come to work. So there are particular segments or age segments of the population which are very high. And about the 30 age group, you tend to find very high income, very high levels of spending, and they also tend to be one of the more significant sectors or demographics in the population. Next slide, please. Moving on to what are the drivers and what you should be looking at. A large and expanding population base driven by a high proportion of expatriates, youth, and again, working class population, a booming tourism sector. This year with the Expo, we're looking at something in the region of about 30 million people coming to Expo. This is in addition to the normal tourist population. Large scale shopping malls. I mean, as I said, shopping is a social aspect. What do I do on a weekend? What do most people do on a weekend? They go out to shopping malls. So again, the growth of this sector is actually creating an increase in demand. What are the constraints or the restraints? I don't like to think of them as constraints. I like to think of them as restraints because you can work with them. One of them is that there's a lot of competition. Every single major international brand is in the country and in the region. How do you differentiate your product? And there have been lots of successful stories by very, very small companies. I was talking to one particular company. They started just a few years ago with nothing, absolutely nothing. In a short space of time, they are now supplying all the major 5-star hotels and 4-star hotels in the country. So with a lot of hard work, with a lot of preparation, you can be extremely successful here, right? There's a very high level of competition, a very high level of price sensitivity, but that shouldn't be a problem. It's, again, how you target and how you place your product within the target segment. If your target segment is willing to pay this, and there are, of course, as said, when you have salaries from $400 to a month to $100,000 plus a month, there will always be a segment that can pay the price. It's how to market it and how to reach this particular segment. Now, the most important, and may I have the next slide, please, is the distribution channel. You have a choice of 7 distribution channels. The most easiest is working with a manufacturer to become a value add. Okay, so you can supply a semi-finished product or an input, and the local manufacturer then adds value and sells it on. This is very good in the B2B space. You can appoint agents and distributors. And again, as I said, Dubai Chamber and their local presence will allow you to meet with agents and distributors. Again, you have to do the normal due diligence, but that's still a very good avenue. Next, you have the direct linkages with retail outlets. We have, for example, many of these retail outlets that buy directly from the manufacturer, sometimes on a private label basis, sometimes on your own label basis. We shouldn't ignore the traditional market in Dubai. If you go to Dubai, I mean, Dubai is a wonderful oxymoron. You've got all the modern part, then you've got the traditional markets. And these traditional markets have been there for many decades. But the amount of business they carry out is amazing. You can actually have a 10 by 10 store, but it's doing millions of dirhams of business. So targeting, and the traditional markets tend to be more old-fashioned way of doing business. So it's perhaps a much easier route, but for the unbranded variety. And then these products are then re-exported to other countries. E-commerce is a wonderful opportunity. We have many e-commerce platforms, Noon, Amazon, TradeLink, Dubai Store. There are numerous platforms, and they allow you to gain connectivity with the end consumer. I think this is something that you should look at. And then we have special events. Even now, we have something called Global Village. Global Village, again, is a 6-month festival, starts in November, finishes in end of March. Sorry, not 6 months, 4 months. And you can get a stall there and you can test one. A lot of companies that I know actually start off in a place like Global Village, where there is a South African pavilion, and then they test their products, they understand what it is, they understand the local tastes and preferences, and then they move on and build a strategy. So here you have 7 different distribution channels that you can use. Again, it depends on your product, how you want to engineer your product, and how you want to engineer the profile of your product. One of the things that I work on, and we spend a lot of time, is how we help women exporters. This is a wonderful platform. It's called She Trades Global. I manage the She Trades MENA for the Middle East, North Africa, but it's a United Nations initiative. This October 17, 18, 19, we have a 3-day event. all the women who attend can actually get exhibition space for free. To register, you have to go to shetrades.com. Of course, you have to pay your own travel costs, but there are a lot of opportunities for you to meet. So can I have the next slide? There are a lot of opportunities for you to meet with fellow women buyers and sellers. So this is connecting women-owned businesses together. That's the idea behind this particular platform, the idea behind She Trades. Can I have the next slide, please? Now, what we're actually going to be doing, sorry, the next slide, is that we are actually going to be doing 6 months of online webinars, training courses, an opportunity for you to meet with other women from across the world. So the idea is that if you want to export to Brazil, why don't you do it through the She Trades platform? So you can come and meet in Dubai, but even before you meet in October, you will have 6 months of workshops, panel sessions, where you can actually interact with other women-owned businesses from around the world. And then in October, you will have the 3 days forum. And following that, we intend to have 6 months of activities. We are working with the African Union Pavilion, the Women's Pavilion. So you will actually be able to interact with not only women buyers, but with global buyers from around the world. May I have the next slide and the one after that? I've talked about this one already. So again, I would recommend that you become a part of She Trades. I know what you're going to tell me. Is it only open for women? Unfortunately, this one, yes. Right? Maybe a good incentive for you to bring a female business partner on board. But the idea is that we want to encourage more women entrepreneurs. And again, this is quite a unique event in the sense that it will be physical and online. So if you feel that you cannot travel, you can still meet women virtually. In fact, we held the event on Monday for all the Commonwealth countries under the She Trades platform. There were 542 B2B meetings, right? So, and it costs nothing. You join on shetrades.com. It costs absolutely nothing to be a part of this, but allows you to have all the connectivity. So even if you are doing this virtually, you will have access to all the B2B meetings. For physical, you will have the physical meetings, but also the exhibition space, which is very important. So if you wish to showcase your products, you will have the exhibition space. And what we're doing is for every woman that attends the She Trades Global Conference in Dubai, we will give them access to the Expo event itself. As I conclude, next slide, please. I would also like to tell you that we do a number of activities, both for men and for women. In fact, we're doing one next month, which is a lot of webinars, a lot of capacity building, so you can actually use Dubai to expand your business onto the wider region. And I think this is something you should look at, is not only how to target the UAE, but how to target the UAE as a launch pad for the wider region. I'm quite cognizant of the fact that I've actually gone over my allocated time, but I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ashraf. Thank you for that overview of how to market our products, but more importantly, how to place our products in particular target market segments. To our viewers, with regards to She Trades, please also have a look out for our She Trade Awareness webinar, which is coming up in partnership with CEDA. That I should be sending out invites in the next week or so, and it should happen around the 25th of March. A very big thank you to all my panel speakers for their valuable contributions and learnings. I thank you for your time this morning. Thank you to all of our participants who have joined us. Ambassador Kachalia, I don't know if you want to have the last few words from government side. No, you're good. You spoke it out. Thank you. Okay, so thank you to all our participants who joined us. Please have a look out for our next webinar, which would be around unlocking red tape in UAE. And so basically knowing all your required documentation that you would need to export to the UAE. I look forward to engaging with you again on that topic. I'll be ending this meeting now. Have a good day further. Goodbye.
Take care. Be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.